Welcome back into the 2024 Top Up Countdown. We already broke down the guys that were just outside of the top 40. Today, we're going to jump into that list. Again, William, we're always a little bit off with a few guys here and there, but this is a fun exercise, kind of leading us up to preseason camp. And this was probably the most challenging top 40 list that I put together because you're kind of splitting hairs once you get beyond a certain point. But the depth really shows itself, and we'll kind of highlight that here in these first 10 guys that we talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think this first one we're going to talk about is a kind of a surprise that he's this low in many ways.
Yeah. Well, at number 40 is safety Savion Riley. I had him 32 on my list. You and Brian did not have him in your top 40. This was, again, I talked about on our last segment during the honorable mentions that there were probably like six guys that I thought about maybe putting in that 40, 39 spot. And Savion Riley, again, just kind of not seeing Shiloh Sanders as a full participant early this summer. I see him as somebody that can come in and be a piece that can be valuable at safety if they need him to play a heavy role. Played at Vanderbilt as a redshirt freshman, actually had 48 tackles as a redshirt freshman, and then saw some reps with the first team defense at Miami this spring before transferring to Colorado. So 3 to play 3. A guy that's going to have a big role in this program. How big of a role that is in 2024 probably kind of depends on injuries a little bit, right? But I
Yeah.
think this is somebody that with 3 years of eligibility is going to be a big part of this program going forward.
Well, and he's 6'2", 202, so he's a big safety. And quite frankly, he's played quite a bit. I'm looking at his page on Vandy, and 48 tackles last year, 12 tackles against Florida, 9 against Wake Forest, 8 against Hawaii. So he has big games. And that was his first year really playing. Didn't play the 2 years before that, but he's a big kid who can run, who can hit people, and has some game experience. So, that safety position needs some guys to step up. And I don't know, again, I'm looking at him going, why the hell I didn't put him in the top 40? But then I'm looking at my top 40. I'm like, well, who would I have knocked out? You
Yeah.
know, it's just
Well,
tough.
that's a good thing is that our votes again kind of put them in most cases kind of where they probably should end up, right? I think that's the great thing about having three of us vote on this list.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Savion Riley is a guy, who very well, after the season or when we take a look at this again next year at this time, we go, oh, well, we weren't right about that guy. And that'd be a
Yeah.
good development of safety for us if that happens.
39 is Yakiri Walker and William. I had him at 37. You had him at 35. Brian did not rank him. He would have been ranking higher prior to spring ball because he was kind of the front runner at that center job. I don't think it's that big of a spoiler to say that Hank Zelinskis is going to finish higher than him because it
Yeah.
seems like he's a little bit higher in that pecking order. But at the same time, I couldn't keep Yakiri Walker off this list. He is a leader of this program. He was a full-time starter at UConn last year, played 6 games the prior year with the Huskies in 2022. Graded out pretty well last year, 2 to play 2. And to have him potentially, and I'm not saying this is going to be for sure the case because they got to go through camp, to have him potentially as a backup on the offensive line is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think, I think what people need to, so you had him at 37, I had him at 35. And I think, quite frankly, if we, I'm more impressed with what I've seen from him this summer in some of those drills that he's getting better and he's going against those big guys and holding his own. And I don't think that he's back up. I think that people need to understand that Hank Zielinski is a damn good player, and there seems to be some kind of bias that people are like, well, he's from Colorado, a homegrown guy, he can't be that good. But Hank Zielinski is a damn good center, and I think Kerry Walker's a pretty darn good center too. So to have him as a backup would be pretty fortunate for us. But I still think he's a pretty good guy that we brought in. You know, just doesn't quite have the size and the power that Hank brings to the table, I don't think.
Number 38 is Jeremiah Brown. You could list him as an edge guy or a linebacker or maybe their top special teams guy this year. I had him at 39. You had him at 33. Brian did not rank him. Only saw games action in 4 games defensively last season, but He was on 5 of the 6 special teams units.
Yeah.
His special teams reps were only second behind Jaden Milliner Jones. They were pretty close together in terms of number of special teams reps last year. Where do you like him most? He did well at linebacker in the spring game.
Right.
He's played edge before. Where do you like him fitting in?
I had him at 33, and he was all over the place in the spring game and had a really good spring. And I don't like him at edge so much because he was great in in the flats and in the field and back in space running with guys in pass coverage to me. So we got edge rushers. We don't need him to be one of those. I like the way he runs out there with people, kind of like uh, uh, who's 2016 Kenneth Oligbodi,
Yeah.
sort of similar like that, where you could put him out on a guy in the slot and have him do some good things with his athleticism. So I think he gives us some flexibility at that inside linebacker spot. And like I said, we got enough edge rushers that I think his place is going to be that sort of field linebacker guy.
Whether it's getting on the field as part of the rotation on defense or special teams, I have this feeling, William, that Jeremiah Brown is going to make like a game momentum changing type play this year. That because he has kind of that gene. He seems like a guy that's going to make plays when he's out there.
When he's got that motor and he doesn't complain and he doesn't say, "Oh, poor me, I didn't play enough." He goes back and works harder and gets better and finds a spot. And he's one of those guys that everybody forgets about because he didn't get out there and make 100 tackles last season, right? But and then as much as our board likes to move people from one position to another, when they do move to a different position, people kind of forget about him, right? So he came in as a pass rusher. Now he's an inside linebacker, and I like what I saw from him. Like I said, out in space as an inside linebacker, not necessarily, he's not the thumper in the middle kind of a guy, but he's the guy that can get out there and run with tight ends and what have you. So I think he brings a lot to the table.
And number 37 is defensive end Quincy Wiggins. I had him 35. You had him 40. Brian had him at 38. So this is the first guy on our top buffs countdown that was on all 3 lists. I struggled with this one. This ranking is more with potential, more
Yeah,
physically looks the part. He was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school, the number 1 ranked recruit in the entire state of Louisiana, which is a talent-rich state. Goes to LSU, close to home. He's from Baton Rouge. Just 16 defensive snaps last season, but he's got 3 to play 3.
yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to tell exactly how many snaps he's going to play, but it just feels like he's too talented to not have a role on this team.
Well, he was a guy at 40, so I had number 40 down between him and Wyatt Hummel on the offensive line because I'm pretty high on Wyatt Hummel. I know you are too, but
Yeah.
I ultimately had to go with Wiggins because he's 6'6", maybe 6'7", 270-ish, and can run, has the talent. He's kind of like a bigger Terrence Lang in a way, and wait for that light to come on. And if it does, I'm not clear quite how they're going to use him. I would think they'd put him out in the 5 technique, but he's got some really talented people in front of him that he's going to have to find his places for playing time. But just too much talent and too much physically there not to have him in this top 40.
Number 36 is Omarion Miller at receiver. I had him 31, you at 36, Brian at 40. This is the first guy I'm like, man, I feel like he's pretty underrated on this list. I mean, I get it. There was consistency issues outside of the fact that he had 196 receiving yards and a half against USC. Gets a phone call from Snoop Dogg, and he was the toast of the town there in a really entertaining game where Colorado almost got over the hump and beat USC. He had a strong spring. He took advantage of the fact that Will Shepard was not on campus, Traylon Miller, Cam Michael were not on campus yet. He's one of 5 receivers on this list if you include Travis Hunter. It just feels like he's too talented to be at 36.
Yeah, but like you said, he's only shown it in that one game, so he's got to get more consistent and make sure that he could do it every game and every week. And then, it's just, this is what we were talking about before we started talking about it. Was like some guys are really good, but they're just behind guys that are NFL guys or something. It's like you look at that wide receiver room and it's kind of ridiculous. And so it's going to be hard for Omari and Miller to steal some playing time unless guys get hurt, you know. So I think he's another one, kind of like who were we talking about a minute ago? Colton Hood, who, you know, maybe next year when that thins out a little bit, he's the superstar. Um, but he's another one, kind of like you know, you said Jeremiah Brown somewhere in 12 games is going to make a play. This guy too. This
Yeah,
guy for
yeah.
sure. Somewhere in 12 games, just like USC, you know, he's going to have that day and he's going to blow up. Will he
I can
do it?
see him in the top 10 Sports Center countdown already.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
going to
You know,
have one of those grabs.
and if he figures out how to do it every damn week, then we're going to look stupid, you know? So that's where he is, I think.
Yeah, that's a good commentary there, William. Up now is number 35, Tajay McCoy, off the edge. He redshirted last year, but pretty much had praise from the second he got on campus in terms of his potential. Got quite a bit of run with the first team defense this spring. There were some edge guys that weren't on the roster quite yet. I did not rank him, William. You had him at 29, Brian him at 36. I felt like last year I was kind of front stage and center of the Tajay McCoy hype train. Now I've got to give that title to you.
Yeah, yeah, and I just keep seeing things from this guy. He's got a tremendous first step. He's got a great burst, and he's really quick. Uses hands well, and I just think he's a guy that's going to explode. And this may be the year he does it. Again. You know, he may be in a room where there's too many guys in front of him, but I just feel like Tajay McCoy is a fantastic talent. He may be, in my view, and he hasn't shown it in a game yet, but he may be the best pure pass rusher on the team, and that's saying a lot because we got some guys, right? Now, can he hold the edge on the run? You know, can he do all the other things? That probably remains to be seen, but I do think that Tajay McCoy is going to be a guy who makes a name for himself as a pass rusher at some point.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of the question marks of how well rounded is he at this point. In
Right.
terms of just pass rush ability, is there a more natural pass rusher on this roster?
Not that I've seen, not that, but you know, and granted, I haven't been out there every practice watching every rep. But you know, because of his quickness off the bat, you know, he's a guy that can do that speed rush on an offensive tackle, and if he learns to use his hands and keep their hands off of him and stuff like that, he I don't know, he kind of reminds me of a stouter Jimmy Gilbert kind of a guy.
All right, number 34 is Alejandro Mata. I had him 30. You did not rank him, William, which is not a surprise because you hate kickers.
I love it.
Brian,
Wait a minute. Take that back. You wash your mouth out with soap, mister. This is my dancer, man. You know, I just couldn't justify, you know.
well, Brian had him at 32. So he sneaks into the list here. He was 10
we have,
of 12,
we
10
have
of 12 on field goals last year, 11 of 12 at Jackson State in 2022. One area I think that you could justify it, William, is that there was a time last year that, Jace Feely was rotating in there, right? So they weren't 100% comfortable with Alejandro Mata being out there for every
yeah.
situation as far as field goals. But the reason that he was on my list is just if it's a reasonable distance and you just you feel good about his confidence level.
Well, and
And
that's the issue to me is that the distance. He's got a limited
yeah,
range. I think,
yeah.
you know, get
And if
outside
he
that.
was doing kickoffs as well, that makes him even more
Yeah,
valuable. And he's not doing that as far as we know. So
yeah, and I do like Alejandro Mata as a kicker, you know, and I think, like you said, within a certain range, he's automatic. And if he had that extra 5 or 10 yards, then I would have him on there.
yeah, yeah. No,
You
it's
know,
fair. No, I
yeah,
just had to give you some
yeah.
flack because that's what we do every year on this countdown.
You and me.
But
But
yeah,
again,
we got to see his dance moves after the game winner against Arizona State, and it sounds like he's working on a celebration for 2024. So hopefully we see another game winner out of him.
but you know, it also goes back to what we've been saying repeatedly is where do you find a spot for some of these guys? You know, who am I
Yeah.
kicking off to put him in there? You know, so I don't know. I think it's tough this year to pick your 40 and leave a lot of these guys out. But um, I also knew that you guys would put the kickers on your shoulders and carry them over to the goal line.
We'll just wait till we get to Mark Vissett. We'll continue this William hates kickers discussion at that point.
Except,
No,
okay, we won't get to that today, but I'm going to remember that.
Number 33 is Rayon Buell, a defensive line transfer from Ohio. I had him 36th. You did not rank him. Brian had him all the way up at 25. I know that the guys on 24/7 Sports that rate the transfers love him. They gave him a 4-star rating. They like his versatility. He earned third team All MAC honors last season. Just 1 year of eligibility left. To me, why he was at 36 and not higher is just there's a lot of guys on that defensive line that we're going to be talking about. It was tough to figure out how many reps he's going to be on the field for.
And that's why I didn't rank him, Adam, is because I look at those guys and he doesn't have the size of some of them or the explosiveness of other ones, and I just don't see frankly how he gets. I think they're going to platoon a lot of guys, and a lot of guys are going to play on the defensive line, but I guess I just looked at him in comparison to all those other defensive linemen, and he's the last of them, almost.
Which is crazy, and that's
Right.
really goes to tell you how much this roster has
Yeah.
improved.
Yeah. Because I got to, I got to get, you know, we could just start listing them off. I mean, there's so many of them, I just couldn't find a spot for them.
At number 32 is Isaiah Augustov, a running back transfer from Arkansas. He was 28th on my list, 34th on your list, and 37th on Brian's list. He was ranked among the top 5 running back prospects in the 2023 class. He averaged 5.8 yards on 35 carries at Arkansas, had a 100-yard game, 4 to play through, 4 to play 3. There's a world in which Isaiah Augustov leads his team in rushing this year.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
he's part of that mix.
Well, I said that back there when we were talking about Colton Hood, that any one of these four guys could be the guy. And quite frankly, it might be a thing where a different hot hand every week. I don't know. We'll see how they fit them in there and how they use them. But I love the way this guy runs, and I love his size and everything about his game is exciting to me. And it remains to be seen what kind of offense we have. But I'm not just saying it. I really think any one of those four guys could be the guy, and he certainly fits right in. I just love his size going up the middle.
Yeah. Number 31 is Anquin Barnes, a defensive line transfer from Alabama. Limited just to 2 games of action for the Crimson Tide, but he's done well since coming into Boulder. He's got 2 to play 2. He was 34th on my list, 26th on your list, and 27th on Brian's list. So we're all pretty high on him. And he's going to be a big run stuffer on that defensive line this year.
He's so huge. He's so ginormous. Watching that spring game, he's just so darn big. But
Yeah.
he had a great spring ball in
Yeah.
practices and in that spring game, and there's just no way around it that he really started to look like the high 4-star Alabama guy that they expected him to be at Alabama. So watching him in spring, I felt like he was really starting to fulfill his potential, and if he really ever fulfills it completely, he's probably an NFL draft pick. So I want to keep an eye on him, and I was watching that. That makes me think about. I was watching one of the well-off media things in the weight room, and all the defensive linemen were doing squats. My God, are they freaking huge?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy crap, are we big on the defensive line? And that doesn't guarantee that they'll be good. Hopefully they all look like Tarzan and play like Tarzan, not look like Tarzan, play like Jane. Do they still say that? Or has everybody forgot who Tarzan and Jane is nowadays?
That's still a saying. You're fine.
Yeah, okay, but I was watching those guys and I was thinking, my God, those guys are huge. So at least we're not going to have a bunch of 270 pounders out there trying to play defensive tackle this year, and
Yeah.
Anthony Barnes is the biggest one of them all, and maybe the most talented of them all. So I'm very excited about him, and I had him ranked the highest, but Brian had him just only one spot behind me at 27, so I'm not too far out there in my fandom, I guess.
Well, it's funny because I talked about Rand Buell transferring from Ohio. If Anquin Barnes started out at Ohio, he probably would have put up some monster stats, right? It
Right?
will maybe it looked a little bit different on paper coming in. But again, so much of my ranking, and maybe even I could have had him higher. I like where he is, 31 on this list.
Yeah,
It was that spring impression that he made, and it seems
exactly.
like the light has turned on for him.
Yeah, yeah, and that would had a big big impact on me for where I ranked him was how he looked in spring here, so that's why I put him there.
All right, to close out this segment of our 2024 Top Buffs Countdown, at number 30 is Sam Hart. I had him 38th. You had him 31. Brian all the way up at 17. Uh, this is the top tight end on the list. He's the only tight end on the list. 3-year run at Ohio State, played a little bit in 2022 there, 2 years of eligibility left. This is one of those positions I think, as I did my depth chart prediction, Colorado fans are like, I wish we had a little bit more top end talent at this position, but I like what Sam Hart can do as a blocking tight end. It just isn't probably going to jump off, the screen the way that Michael Harrison with some of his catches did last year.
People say that, but I think he's going to be I think he's going to can be just as good of a pass game tight end as Michael Harrison as well. My problem, I like Sam Hart a lot. I just don't know how the heck we're going to use the tight end in this offense yet. So if they're only going to use him as a glorified offensive tackle, then let's put an offensive tackle out there. But I think Sam Hart gives you all aspects of the tight end game if you use him right and you get him out there and get him matched up on safeties and what have you. I think that he's got the athleticism and the ability to really hurt a defense. And hopefully we got an offensive coordinator finally that knows how to use a tight end to hurt a defense. And I know people are like, well, we got all these wide receivers. Well, but there's a way that you use a tight end to help those wide receivers or to punish a defense for over shifting to try to cover all those wide receivers. And if we do that, then I think Sam Hart is a guy who can do both of those things, and he doesn't give away what you're going to do. What you don't want in a tight end is a guy that every time they come in, they go, okay, running the ball, they're running the ball,
Yeah.
so you get the ball in his hands a few times so that the defense has to stay honest. And I think he's a guy that can do that for you.
Yeah, to your point, I think Sam Hart is more versatile in the sense that it's not a giveaway when he comes on the field. Like last year when they had to ask some converted defensive linemen to come in there, or even Hank Zolinskas had to play some
Right.
tight end in a jumbo package because that was kind of
Give him.
signaling to the defense what was coming. I don't think that's going to be the case with Sam Hart.
You don't
But
think going deep and going to make the big catch?
I'm just upset that Bishop Thomas never scored a touchdown. That's what I wanted to see. But unfortunately didn't work out for him in Boulder. But the depth at receiver is partly why I had Sam Hart lower on the list, just because I think you're going to have more 4 receiver sets out there than you're going to have a tight end on the field. If you look at the reps throughout the course of the game. And so that's kind of why I had him a little bit lower. And it's crazy at the receiver position. We didn't even talk about Cordell Russell. Cam Michael, as I mentioned, was not voted for. Drelon Miller. Like there's so many pieces at that receiver position that I'm not worried about them having enough targets for Shedeur to look at. And so I don't think the tight end position is one that needs to be this focal point of the offense.
I think the tight end position actually helps your running game. Okay, so you put him out there, and then if you put him out there and you've got say Augustov in the backfield, and you're going to run the ball, you don't have to change your personnel now to throw the ball at the same time, but you also have a key extra blocker in there. So I think he gives you options on offense, and I think options are what good coaches are looking for, because different sets, different personnel packages and such. If you've got a good innovative offensive coach, you can use that. You can use it in different ways, and they're going to adjust and try to put a nickel or a dime in, and all of a sudden you got Sam Hart out there, catching balls over a 5'10" guy. So that's what you're hoping for.
All right. Well, that is going to conclude this segment of our Top Buffs Countdown. We've got 3 more segments as we work our way up to number 1. And there should be some fun debate as we continue to go through this. Again, I enjoy this exercise. It's one of my favorite things to do every summer. What are your thoughts as we close out this segment and get close to jumping into that top 30?
I was going to say we got to get some more controversy in here. Our fans have a certain expectation, and so we got to find some things to fight about or something. But I think that we've got the top 30. I think there's a few surprises in there. I don't think anybody that's in that top 30 is a surprise. well, I think a couple of them might be to some people that don't follow alignment so much, but um, I think that our top four will not be a shock to anybody. Um,
Yeah.
but how they play out 1, 2, 3, 4 might be a little bit to people. So I don't know. It's fun, and there's a lot of there's a few guys in there that got some wildly different votes from us, but for the most part, I think we're pretty much on the same page on most of these guys. So it's a lot more fun when you got a lot of good players, but it's a lot more difficult.
Well, Brian is a Legionte Wester hater, so we'll get to that at some
Yeah,
point.
right. Jeez, yeah, I'll tell you, we're gonna have to talk about that. Plus, he and I have to have a talk about freshman offensive linemen.
Chidozie Wenkwa, we were very different on. Tyler Johnson, we were pretty different. Yeah, there's going to be some controversy as we
Yeah,
get closer
yeah.
to this.
But and there, yeah, there's a few in there. And then yeah, so we'll have fun with it. I think there's a lot to be said in here. Dallin Hayden had some different votes from Brian, I think.
Yeah, he's president of the Dallin Hayden fan club for
Yeah.
sure. So, not to tease too much, but yeah, this is a lot of fun. William, thanks as always. What were you going to
You don't show up on the video, you don't get to defend yourself. Tough. That's your problem.
say? Fair enough, William. Well, hey, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for participating in this countdown and for joining me on here to help break it down.
It's always my pleasure, my friend. Anytime you want it.
All right, and thanks everybody out there for tuning in.